Madani Muzakara, Madani Muzakara, Madani Muzakara, Madani Muzakara. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen. Amma ba'd. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام عليك يا رسول الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا حبيب الله الصلاة والسلام عليك يا نبي الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا نور الله. Booklet Blessings of Salat and Salam, page number 4. Saying of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam, number 12. Wherever you may be, send salat upon me, for your recitation of salat reaches me. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ala Muhammad.
My question in your quote is forgetting also a blessing? When a person forgets something, can we say that this forgetting of his is a blessing of Allah Almighty, or can we not say that? Please shed some light on this.
There are many such cases in which forgetting is a blessing. Now, for example, someone observed an ill behavior with us and we forgot about it. Then it is indeed a blessing. Remembering his ill behavior will lead to us developing hatred against him. We'll keep talking ill of him. We will stay in search of an opportunity to seek revenge from him. We often scold our children, tell them off, or be a bit firm with them in order to discipline them. But the child forgets about it. It's a blessing. Now, if the child doesn't forget it, becoming stubborn over it, then the parents will suffer even more. So, there are different cases for this. The memory of the animals is extremely weak. If the animals don't forget how you treated them and they remember it, as in if you struck a goat with a stick at the time and it was tied up, and the goat remembered it, didn't forget it. So after being untied, what if it takes its revenge from its horns? How would you feel then? So there are many such cases in which the forgetting of a person is beneficial for him. Now, how was forgetfulness created? Regarding this, there's a hadith in Sunnah Tirmizi that Sayyiduna Adam alayhi salam ate forgetfully from the tree. Therefore, his offspring started to forget. Sayyiduna Adam alayhi salam committed a mistake, so his offspring started committing mistakes. Now, its commentary in Mirat is as following, meaning that Sayyiduna Adam alayhi salatu wassalam made an ijtihadi mistake in determining the tree, as in to specify and affix the particular tree, and thought that Allah Almighty has specifically forbidden to eat from that particular tree, and I am eating the fruit from a different tree, whereas the prohibition was for that very type of tree, meaning that he was not meant to eat from that type of tree, and he thought that the prohibition is from only one particular tree. So in this regard, he alayhi salam committed an ijtihadi mistake. This is the first interpretation. And the second opinion is that, or he thought, Adam alayhi salam thought, that I'm not prohibited from eating, rather I've been forbidden from going close to it. So the same mistake and the element of forgetfulness is still widely prevalent amongst the human beings. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ala Muhammad.
My question is that some people keep long hair. Would this also be considered sunnah or not? Moreover, what kind of long hair will be deemed as a hairstyle according to sunnah?
Satan is very cunning. I've noted for some people, they just deceive themselves. They fall prey to self-deception. They think that they've got hair according to sunnah. Or some people could perhaps think that the other person has sunnah-complying hairstyle. It's not in reality. They cut hair from the sides here. If you get your hair cut from the sides over here, then it will not be sunnah-complying hairstyle. You have to keep all the hair throughout. Don't cut even a single hair deliberately. All the hair need to be kept. People normally trim hair from the sides. and keep a ponytail at the back. This is not Sunnah hairstyle. This would perhaps be some kind of fashion adopted by yourselves. The Sunnah of our beloved Prophet is to keep full hair. Do not trim them from anywhere. Some people get their hair trimmed using a scissor from the middle. I have seen this myself, as in one's hair would be very thick and they would trim from the sides. So why do you deceive yourself or other people that you have Sunnah complying hairstyle? Don't do so. Keep hair according to Sunnah. Otherwise, people may get confused that this is Sunnah complying hairstyle. May Allah Almighty enable us to adopt this very Sunnah of the beloved Prophet as well. One's hair should be at least up to his half ears, or up to end of his ears, or hair should be up to one's shoulders. The Holy Prophet ﷺ kept hair in these three ways. So his blessed hair would either be up to his half ears, or up to his full blessed ears, or up to his blessed shoulders. As in, his blessed hair would be up to his blessed shoulders. In other words, his blessed hair would touch his blessed shoulders. Keeping below the shoulders is haram. This falls into resembling and copying the women. And if the women cut their hair above their shoulders, then they will become sinful, as this is imitating the men. And if a man grows his hair so much that they go below his shoulders, then this will be imitating women, and now he will become sinful.
Well, how can one measure whether they are below the shoulders or above? Actually, what happens is, suppose if someone is sitting like this, his hair would seem touching below the shoulder. So like this, hair touching below the shoulder, especially when you look from behind. What do you think? How much would you consider it being below the shoulder? Is there any length or limit which would be classed as imitating women? Actually, in a relaxed sitting posture, these hairs seem below the shoulder. In a standing posture, they do not seem below the shoulder. But when a person sits down, and that sitting posture to other person, these hairs seem slightly below the shoulder. Actually, I want to ask that what is the limit and length that we would say now these hair are below the shoulder?
The actual measurement would be found out after having a bath, after combing hair. A person's hair get absolutely straight. That's when you will find out whether they come below the shoulder or not. If they do fall below the shoulders, then they'll have to be cut. If one has kept hair below the shoulders deliberately, then he'll become sinful, as this is imitating a woman. Now, to check the length of hair in normal sitting or standing posture will be a bit difficult. The hair will be checked in a normal state. Raising your head will lower your hair. For example, having kurta up to half of the shins is sunnah. Now, bowing down to see it would make it reach half the shins. But if one was to stand straight and another person was to look at him, then it would be determined whether it is up to half the shins or not. So, the measurement etc. in this regard is usually carried out using a measuring tape. Now, in regards to hair, some people's hair are shorter, some people's hair are longer. So, in any case, they should not be below the shoulders of a person. They should not be below the shoulders when standing in a normal posture. And double check this after having a bath, that whether or not they fall below the shoulders. This seems viable approach. Regarding this, I have not read anything in specific, but this approach makes sense. Allah knows best. Who keeps Sunnah style hair anyways? Very few people do so. Even if someone does so, they do so to keep a ponytail. And when those people visit religious people or attend any gathering, then they do pay respect and they open up their ponytail, and his hair seem to be according to Sunnah, which is not the case. Sunnah abiding person gets recognized, as such a person will have a full beard with the crown of imamah on his head, or at least a cap on his head. In short, his physical appearance and clothing will be religious, which will of course suggest that his hair are according to Sunnah. Otherwise, if the beard is trimmed or shaved, and his clothing is also non-religious, then it would give an indication that perhaps it is a ponytail. However, we cannot say that for sure. Keeping a ponytail is a sin. It is copying a woman. Women keep a ponytail. A man should live with a masculine identity, also through his hair. May Allah enable us. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ala Muhammad.
In our business, we tell our customers if they come back to resell the same product which they bought from us, we would deduct 35%. Is it permissible to deduct certain percentage or not? This also causes arguments when we purchase the product of 10,000 rupees in 6 or 7,000 rupees.
There is a fatwa of Darul Ifta Sunnat on box sealed mobile phone. That when a box sealed mobile phone is bought and sold, at that time buying and selling categorically takes place, in which the price is fixed. The customer pays for that mobile phone and purchases it. And as for buying it back at a lower price, the norm in the market is that if a person comes to return it back after the box has been opened, then they buy it back at a lower price. Or the shopkeeper from whom it was bought clarifies it himself that if you come to return or sell it back after the box has been opened, then we will buy it at this reduced price. This is like a promise from the shopkeeper that we will take it back but at this price. Therefore, the buying and selling that took place for the first time and the customer paid the full price of it, there's no harm in this transaction, provided that there's no other element of deceit or any other problem in it. And now in case the customer doesn't like it and comes to return it back, then this will be a new transaction. Remember that in this case the owner has the authority of finalizing the deal at the new price or not. He cannot be forced to do so. And in this new business transaction, both the parties can mutually agree to whatever price they both are okay with, regardless of whether it is 35% less or whatever price gets finalized. Both the parties have the right of mutually finalizing the deal as they deem appropriate. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ala Muhammad.
I would say, Alhamdulillah, very important and essential Islamic ruling has been clarified. But in case after listening to this verdict, any businessman says to the buyer that yes, I had agreed to buy this product back after deducting certain percentage, but I do not want to buy now. So in such scenario, there's a possibility of quarrel between the buyer and the seller. Now the buyer who has come back to sell, his counseling is needed, isn't it? Because seller has right to refuse to buy that product back. What do you say? Please guide.
It will be deemed as a breach of promise, provided that he made the promise. So this is not related to that very business transaction. A promise should be fulfilled. Once you've made the promise, then fulfill it. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ala Muhammad.
Brother Shahid has asked a question that when people get their wedding cards printed, they print name of Allah and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on it. But those who receive these cards, they do not respect them as they should do. What do you say on this? What should actually be done?
There's no fault of the one who had these names written on it. Because every religious book, or a worldly book, a letter, pretty much everything has the name of Allah and His Messenger. So one should not be stopped from having it written. The Muslim, he knows for himself that what is etiquette and respect. The other person should respect the name of Allah and His Messenger. If a person doesn't write anything, still the people will criticize that he didn't write the name of Allah and His Messenger, as the marriage is taking place with the mercy of Allah Almighty. And the wedding cards of us Muslims do normally have these names written on them. Therefore, every such wedding card should be respected. That's sensible. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ala Muhammad.
Do we get same amount of reward on reciting small forms of Salat ala Nabi instead of big forms of Durud?
It's not about big or small, it's about the one whose virtue has been mentioned in Hadith. For example, it's been mentioned in Hadith regarding Durud Ibrahimi. So that is the most superior Salat. Now no matter if someone recites some other Salat million times more than this one, besides Durud Ibrahimi, then we cannot call that one to be superior than this one because this one has been mentioned in Hadith. Hence it is the most superior. Now if someone swears an oath that I will recite the most superior form of Salat upon the Prophet and he recites Durud Ibrahimi, then his oath will be fulfilled. Besides, there are many other forms of Salat upon the Prophet. All those forms that are according to Sharia, reciting them will be an act of reward for you. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ala Muhammad.
I've got one question to ask from Amir of Sunnah. sometimes we import products from abroad. Now my question is, now suppose if our delivery is due in 2 or 3 weeks time, can we do the deal of those products which are not yet in our possession? Please guide.
In the scenario that you mentioned in the question, until the buyer or his representative do not gain possession over it, until then the goods cannot be sold ahead. This transaction would be prior to possession. The hadith forbids us from finalizing the deal over goods prior to taking possession, ownership of them. Hadith explicitly forbids us from selling goods ahead before taking possession over those goods. Selling it ahead before the possession has been explicitly forbidden, and such business transaction is invalid, and this business deal will not be correct. The buyer and the one to whom he is selling ahead, both will become sinful. If such kind of deal has been finalized, then it is mandatory and necessary upon both the parties to terminate and nullify this business deal, end it altogether. Anyhow, one way of avoiding impermissibility and haram is that you can make the promise for the business deal. This would then be allowed. It would be in a way that when I get the possession of my stock, then I will sell you this much of my stock at this much cost. There's no harm in this, as in the deal will only materialize when the possession is taken. Another form of ease can also be that the country or the city where the goods were purchased from, a person can appoint someone as a representative there, saying that gain possession over my stock on my behalf. After taking the possession on his behalf as his representative, now he can send goods towards him. After the possession of the representative also, the owner of the goods can do a trade deal ahead. He can then sell it, as in the possession of his representative is deemed as his own. What we need to remember over here is that, in the light of the rulings of Sharia, the impermissibility of bay' qabla al-qabz, i.e. the business deal to be rendered impermissible before having the possession of the goods, is specific to those goods that can be transferred from one place to another. For example, you sell these bowls or you sell mobile phones, as in any such goods that can be transferred from one place to another. It is not permissible for such goods. For non-transferable things, which cannot be relocated, such as a house, empty land, or a shop, for these kinds of things, bay' qabla al-qabz, meaning doing their trade deal before gaining the possession, is permissible. Nevertheless, having said that, selling non-transferable things before gaining their possession to the one from whom it was actually bought from would also render the deal to be impermissible. So this scenario also needs to be considered. So to sell to the one from whom one initially purchased the stock is impermissible before gaining the possession. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ala Muhammad.
I think there's a possibility of misunderstanding with this word of transferable and non-transferable, because normally land, property, house, they are transferable. That means they are transferred from one name to other name, but that property itself is unmovable.
Yes, unmovable.
Whereas transfer of ownership can be done from any part of the world, and this is done through documents. Could you please further clarify these two terms, transferable and movable?
Yes, unmovable. So the first type is movable goods, and the second type of goods that we spoke about are the goods that cannot be moved, unmovable goods.
Yes, that's right.
Unmovable. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ala Muhammad.
Especially members of our business community, they can benefit from this, as some of them, they are importers and some are exporters, especially those that import products from abroad, they face certain issues. For them, these all various scenarios they've been mentioned. I hope they will benefit from this. And solution of their questions are answered in earlier mentioned scenarios.
My question is, the dhikr that we perform, do we have to hear it with our ears, or can we perform it in our heart? And will we be rewarded for it?
For it to be deemed as recited, one has to pronounce words with correct articulation loud enough so that he himself can hear. Some askar are also of the heart. Zikr bil qalb, zikr from the heart, are also there. If one recites salat upon the Prophet, he should do so with the tongue. There are instances to recite it in the heart too, like if Jum'ah sermon is being delivered, and the blessed name of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came in the khutbah. Now reciting salat with the tongue is forbidden. It should be from the heart. But generally, the tasbih that people recite, or do any other zikr in general, in those cases it will be deemed as recited only if the person recites it from his tongue. And during salah, these rulings are to be observed even to a greater degree. As for qira'at, as much qira'at is fard to be recited in salah, that much recitation should be heard by one's own ears, meaning that much sound should be produced with correct point of articulation. Now let's say if the person did recite, but his voice was suppressed due to some external noise or disturbance, or the person himself cannot hear properly due to having problems in his hearing. If this is the reason behind for him not being able to hear himself, then it's fine, because actually he is pronouncing the minimum required amount. He is pronouncing those words and letters with correct pronunciation, as in if there wasn't any external disturbance, then he would hear it himself. In other words, if a person was able to hear himself, if there was no obstacle in his hearing, reciting in this loud voice is necessary for him. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ala Muhammad.
Someone is asking, how is it to say Allah has forgotten us?
Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forget. Allah Almighty is free from forgetting. Saying that Allah Almighty has forgotten us is disbelief. It is absolute disbelief. There's a verse of Quran as well on this.
That verse is La yadillu Rabbi wa la yansa, which means my Lord neither strays nor forgets. Neither strays nor forgets, as you mentioned. Allah Azza wa Jal does not forget.
Yes, this is the verse of the Quran. So anyhow, Allah does not forget. It is disbelief to say that Allah forgets. May Allah protect our iman. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ala Muhammad.
Brother Asif has asked a question that in case a family member dies in someone's house in the month of Safar al-Muzaffar, can he decorate his house with lights in Rabiul Awwal on the occasion of the birth of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Is it okay to do?
The grief is actually for 3 days upon a death, and grief ends after 3 days. Now as for putting up lights upon the blessed birth, it should be done out of the respect of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What's wrong in this? In putting up lights? But consider the reaction of the public. If they criticize, then try to be a bit careful. And do not consider this impermissible either. Make sure it doesn't cause any arguments or fights in the family. If so, it is not further wajib to put up lights. It is a mustahab act. However, let's say on Eid al-Adha, if they stop you from performing sacrifice because it's first Eid after a death in the family, then you'll have to do the sacrifice, provided that it is wajib upon you, regardless of whether the family members get angry. But the sacrifice will have to be performed. But since putting the lights up is a mustahab act, and not putting it up is not a sin, hence we should try to save people from grudges and hatred. But one shouldn't consider it impermissible either. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ala Muhammad.
When you put a cut in this tree, something red oozes out. Is this blood? If it is blood, then does it come under the ruling of flowing blood? And if its splashes come on clothes, then would the clothes become impure? Please bless us with an answer.
This is not blood. It is a tree, and at times different types of juice or liquid come out of a tree, and this is also a kind of a liquid, not blood. Like a fish doesn't have blood either. It is a blood-resembling liquid. You see, the beetroot is also of red color, the beetroot. Coincidentally, it was yesterday. As since the recent past, what I tend to do is that I consume steamed vegetables 2 times a day. Steamed vegetables twice a day. So due to the beetroot, rest of the water also turned red. And Hassan Raza was calling it to be blood. He kept saying that there's blood in the vegetables. It was Hassan Raza or Hadi who said? Did you say that? Maybe you said it. There is blood. So anyhow, every red liquid is not blood. Otherwise, what about watermelon? So you will see that a beetroot has red color liquid in it, which resembles to blood. It's same color as blood. So if it contains red color, it does not mean that it is blood. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ala Muhammad.
Engineer Muhammad Irshad Attari is asking a question that flowing blood is impure. Those who sell chicken, they slaughter chicken with a knife, and then with same knife they slaughter other chickens. Is slaughtering permissible with an impure knife?
Slaughtering a chicken will indeed make a knife covered in blood. And at times people use the same knife to slaughter other chickens. Same is the state in slaughtering other animals as well. So it is not allowed to make a pure thing impure without a reason. But it will get impure only in the case when the blood will flow out. But before this could happen, they use the impure knife on the animal. This does raise an issue. We have generally observed full precautions at the times of slaughtering. Always wash the knife. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ala Muhammad.
Madani Muzakara, Madani Muzakara.